on your batteries. Check. Emergency center. Check. Store up your water. Check. And board up your window. Check. So you got to place it. Check. Before it is too late. Check. Disaster could happen anytime, any place.
Welcome to From Danger to Safety, the official disaster preparedness program from the National Emergency Management Agency, Nema. This show is proudly brought to you by our sponsor, National Caribbean Insurance. Stay with us as we move from danger to safety.
In the sun or in the rain, life's a journey, joy and pain. But NCI's here day and night, always here for you, making it right. Always here for you. With NCI, you've got a friend, always here for you, right here to the very
At National Caribbean Insurance, you are covered and secure. We're your partner, your protector, your peace of mind. So for home, for health, for life, choose NCI because we're always here for you. Always.
Always here for you. With NCI, you've got a friend. Always here for you. Right here to the very end. Always here for you. With NCI, you've got a friend. Always here for you. Right here to the very end.
On today's program, we look at the crucial role of social services in disaster response and recovery. We sit down with Chrissie Worme-Charles, the Director of Social Development in Grenada, for a powerful personal and professional reflection on the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl. This historic storm devastated the islands of Carriacou and Petite Martinique as a Category 4 hurricane. Mrs. Worme-Charles will share how her team sprang into action to assist those most in need. She'll discuss the challenges they faced and the opportunities that arose from this difficult ordeal.
My name is Chrissie Worme-Charles, Director for Social Development within the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, Grenada. Okay, so Hurricane Beryl placed us in a precarious position in some ways, right? Personally, it affected me in relation to, remembering the different disasters and so forth that has passed through Grenada. So more or less the residual impression of COVID-19, right? In terms of our country's response to crisis and disaster management. So that was on the forefront of my mind. But at the same time, one has to center themselves and look at the particular situation and do the necessaries to ensure that the proper interventions are made. So to a certain extent, I was a bit nervous. But I think that was expected in relation to any disasters or so forth. Knowing what would have happened to Grenada in 2004 and 2005. So I was a bit apprehensive. But nonetheless, was able to ride the storm. And thankfully, my area where I live, that is in St. George's, was not really affected by the storm. It was just more or less high winds. So at least that placed me in a better space so that I can definitely do the job. Right? So that's personally. And of course, as a duty bearer, you have to put on that hat too as well. You have to wear more than one hat, in that space. So personally, we were not totally affected, but as a duty bearer, we know that the different parts of our country, including Carriacou and Petite Martinique, was devastated. So, our ministry, plays a tremendous role in the interventions after any disasters. We are responsible for providing psychosocial support, organizing welfare and voluntary support services to people who would have been experiencing disasters or anything of that sort. So my role really was to lead the ministry in different spaces, and also too, all boots literally was on the ground. right? So yes, I was the director for social development, but most importantly, I was a part of the human service organization. So I had to revert to certain roles as being a social worker too as well, providing that type of support where it needs to be, and also in developing programs to ensure that the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique and the northern part of the country received the necessary support that they have to, so that they can, return to happiness and, basically return to normalcy as much as they can. So more or less project designing, intervening, doing interventions, first responses, and even traveling to Carriacou and Petite Martinique to ensure that cash transfers are given to our people, right? And that was so very critical and important because it allowed them, to transition well in the midst of all of the disaster and the chaos that they were experiencing. So it was a bit challenging. It was very emotional too as well, to see the country, how it was and how it became. And also too, what was very admirable was the will and the determination of the people. Yes, they were experiencing shocks, but at the same time, the desire, to rise above, and the resiliency. I think that was really important. And, we rallied around as a team, together with our partners regionally, locally, and internationally to ensure that the human service organizations, goals, and ethics were actually realized. So it was a very important opportunity for me in the space as director for social development, but more importantly, as a Grenadian, meeting our citizens where they are at and helping to improve and to develop them, right? And working with them and for them. So it was a pleasure. Because we provided immediate cash transfer to people. So now they had the economic power, right, to purchase whatever is necessary, just, to sustain them for that brief period, that relief. So we saw that direct impact, people having that spending power to access the necessary goods, to provide a proper meal for themselves and even to administer some of the medical protocol. That was critical. Because in Carriacou, access to cash was a little bit limited because the banks and so forth were down. And in the latter parishes, that is St. Andrews, St. Patrick, St. John, St. Mark, seeing people actually being able to provide for their families, I think that was really rewarding, right? And also meeting them where they are at. Some of the farmers would have lost absolutely everything. So for them having a little bit of spending power for that particular point in time was very important, restoring some form of human worth and dignity. And those are the things that really matter in crisis, humanitarian efforts and reaching each other as brothers and sisters. And more importantly, ensuring that our vulnerable or at-risk populations are taken care of. There were some challenges. I think trauma affects so many different people. So for example, some of our clients in Carriacou, they were affected tremendously. They were traumatized, and it took them a little while to rebound and to come back to normalcy. And even our caregivers, oftentimes we place a lot of emphasis on the people who are most affected and not necessarily the professionals, right? But we saw that in Carriacou, the professionals really took, a hit, right? And it was a challenge. Developing strong social protection systems that factor in that key component, providing care for the carers. So that was one of our challenge, right? We did provide it after the fact, but those are things that we also have to integrate when we are developing our policies, placing the needs of our first responders, at the helm. Also too, the importance of social protection and particularly psychosocial responses. Emphasis in a lot of instances are placed on building back physical infrastructure and not necessarily the mental component. Now it's very important to place emphasis on our mental component, right? Without mental health, it ceased to exist and persons would not be able to rebound and people on the whole will not be able to grow, and resiliency will be affected. So it's important for our ministry, it's important for policy makers, it's important for our government, especially our financing departments, to honor and recognize the importance of psychosocial interventions, right, in the midst of disasters. So I want to say that those are some of our challenges, but opportunities, are knocking at our doors and are coming to the fore, in a sense that we've seen some improvements in our budgetary allocations for our ministry. So we have expanded our human resource in the psychosocial department. So we are seeing a budget that is sensitive to a certain extent towards psychosocial support, and that is what we want, right, to ensure that it gets the prominence that it needs. So we saw the limitations, and we saw the government of Grenada addressing some of those limitations. Of course, it's not an overnight process. It's a work in progress, right, and building our human capital, building our social capital and psychosocial responses, those are fundamental and are key towards nation development. So, within the crisis, the limitation, opportunities shall come and has come, right? And it's very important for us to share our experiences with our brothers and sisters across the Caribbean, right? Because together we are one. And together, we shall rise out of any circumstances or situations. So it's good opportunities too, as well, as we move together as a nation and as a region towards our responses towards disasters. Lessons learned, the gaps that we have experienced, as a ministry, in terms of providing adequate support in a timely manner and so forth. Those are good lessons. And as I said before, government would have taken necessary initiative in expanding some of our human resources. Small but, sure steps, because we have to be conscious that we work within a fiscal space that is limited, right? So those are lessons learned, but we have also seen action coming out of those lessons. So it's not just only a talk shop, right? But it's actually translated into human service growth, and also to within the region to just the same. Lessons learned, Caribbean people standing together, rising together, learning from the lessons that Grenada probably would have experienced, the gaps that Grenada would have experienced. So therefore, when they're building the social protection system, it's supposed to be building back better. Why? Because of the lessons learned and the challenges. So it really, to me, it's part of an entire picture, the entire scope of our experiences, not just limited to Grenada, but it extends to the Caribbean. So you're not reinventing the wheel, right, when it comes to disaster response. So lesson well learned, opportunity well presented, and together as a society and a community, we shall grow.
That's all the time we have for today's episode of From Danger to Safety. We'd like to extend a special thank you to our guest, Mrs. Chrissie Worme-Charles, for sharing her invaluable insights and personal experiences on the role of social development after a disaster. A special thank you to our sponsor, National Caribbean Insurance, for making this program possible. The program is aired every Tuesday at 1 p.m. on Ziz Radio, with a rebroadcast on television at 8 p.m. It will also be available on Nema's YouTube channel and Facebook page. For more information on disaster preparedness, follow us on our social media channels. Join us again next time.
So you got to play safe before it is too late. Disaster could happen anytime, any place. In the sun or in the rain, life's a journey, joy and pain. But NCI's here day and night, always here for you, making it right. Always here for you. With NCI, you've got a friend. Always here for you, right here till the very
At National Caribbean Insurance, you are covered and secure. We're your partner, your protector, your peace of mind. So for home, for health, for life, choose NCI because we're always here for you. Always.
Always here for you. With NCI, you've got a friend. Always here for you, right here till the very end. Always here for